This is Dr. Andrew Hahn, and this is episode 43 of Guided Self-Healing, Fearless Living. And in this episode, we're moving along with the book, and we are now going to go to single center patterns. And single center patterns are patterns that affect one of our three centers. And of course, if you want to know more about this, our book is coming out this week, although you're probably hearing this after the book comes out, but it's called The 1 Hour Miracle. And you'll find much more detail about this in the book if you're interested. And of course, we would be very grateful if you do buy the book and you find it interesting. And of course, we want to hear everything you have to share with us about it. Again, it's called The 1 Hour Miracle. And everything's a miracle, you know. It's not just things that you read about in the Bible or the Quran or wherever you'd be reading. You know, when you gain a little more freedom from your suffering, it's a miracle. When you feel a little bit more present and alive, it's a miracle. When you are able to be with the parts of you that are suffering and know you're not them, but you can be with them and you don't identify with them, it's a miracle. So we're going to talk about other miracles today, which is what happens when we can be with the parts of our centers that are traumatized. So single center patterns are about one of the three centers, and we have three. It's called the head, the heart, and the gut. And we're going to talk today about what happens when they're whole and integrated, and then what happens when they're traumatized. So let's start with the head center. And the head center is just about beliefs. And when your head center is in alignment, what you believe and what you know to be true are totally lined up with each other. But when there's a trauma to the head center, you believe something, and on a deeper level, you know it isn't true, and you have some judgmentalism or anxiety about the belief. And so it becomes compulsive, and there's anxiety or shame or something attached to it. And of course, we have to transform that. So I'll use my favorite example, which is, let's suppose I believe because of some trauma that I'm unworthy of love. And then I say on a deeper level, of course, I know I'm worthy of love. I know everybody is worthy of love in my deepest knowing, but I don't believe I'm worthy of love. And I have anxiety or judgment about myself or others because of this belief. And then it's traumatized. And what we want to do with any kind of belief like this, which we call a limiting or reversed belief, is we're not going to change the belief. We're going to change the judgmentalism or the anxiety. And the practice for this belief, which is something that you can read about and we'll talk about later, called reversal tapping, is a kind of affirmation, but it's not an affirmation that denies your experience. It's an affirmation that challenges the judgmentalism. And so what we will do is we will do three things at once. The first thing is we will say an affirmation. In this case, even though I believe I'm unworthy of love, I deeply and profoundly love, accept, and respect myself. So we're changing the judgmentalism, which is right now, because I believe I'm unworthy of love, I'm anxious, I'm ashamed, I'm comparative, I'm compulsive, I'm whatever it is. And we want to let go of that reactivity. Why this is so is because if you have a limiting or reverse belief, on some level, there's a truth to belief if it's not traumatized. So unworthiness may alchemically transmute into a higher form called humility. And of course, then we'd say, well, we're all worthy of love and we're all unworthy of love, and both are true. And so what? It's not a big deal. So the first thing we do is we have this affirmation, which says, no matter what I believe, I deeply and profoundly love myself, I respect myself, and I accept myself as self-acceptance. And while we do that, we make a big infinity loop with our eyes. And the reason we do that is that it does several things. It crosses the midline, which puts our left and right sides back together, because when there's a trauma, of course, one thing that happens is the left and right side splits. And for those of you who know EMDR or any of the midline crossing interventions, basically what we're doing is we're putting the left and right side back together again, like Humpty Dumpty. And what that means is when they're back together, it means that the little picture and the details and the logic go together with the big picture and are a deeper knowing and a deeper intuitive knowing, and they fit together so that the details and the big picture and all that go with that in terms of logic and intuition all become one. That's what happens when you cross the midline, at least as far as I know. And what happens when you make an infinity loop as opposed to just going back and forth is it fires everywhere in your brain. And if you know neurolinguistic programming, you know that the eyes, when they go in a certain direction, it has a meaning. And when they're going to the left, it's real. And when they're going to the right, it is essentially um, imaginal. And so when you make a big infinity loop, you're firing visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. So what you see, what you hear, and what you sense or do um, in the literal world and in the imaginal world. You're opening your mind to all of changing all of those areas. And meanwhile, you're tapping around your ears in a big half moon. And what that does is it makes you more open-minded. So you're becoming more open-minded. You're installing something visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, real and imaginal. And what you're installing is this experience, a knowing that you can accept yourself no matter what you believe about yourself. And that's called heaven. So that's the way out of the hell of limiting beliefs when you're traumatized there. So that's the head center. Let's talk about the heart center now. And let's talk about when the heart center is fully aligned. And when the heart center is aligned, what that means is simply this. What you feel is exactly what you are feeling, and what you're feeling is in response to what's happening in the moment. And whatever you're feeling is fine. And at that point, your heart center is fine. But sometimes our heart centers are traumatized and we are stuck in the past, so to speak. And then we don't let ourselves feel some feeling, and we're not at choice about expression. And so we will do one of three things when we're not at choice about expression. We will either deny the feeling altogether, we will transform it into a different feeling. So if I was really angry, I might say I'm sad, but I wouldn't let myself feel anger. Or it could be something like joy, because some of us won't let ourselves feel joy. So we'll change that into a different feeling, or we won't let ourselves experience it. And then we displace it. So if I'm really angry at you, but that's not acceptable, I might get angry at my child, or I might get angry at my pet, or whatever. And so if you deny it, you change it into a different feeling, or you transmute it, and or you displace it, and you're not at choice about expression. So you will feel compulsively like you have to express it or you can't express it. And so, again, there's no particular practice or intervention for any kind of blocked access to feelings and choice about expression, except to notice it when you won't let yourself experience some feeling and you're not a choice about expression. You will notice a discomfort. Always, when we're suffering, there's a discomfort. And when you find the discomfort that's associated with that inability to feel and be a choice, you choose again to bring all your awareness to it. And you say to that aspect of being, you say, you teach us, what have you come to share about your fear of feeling this and your fear of expressing it or not expressing it? And worlds will open up to you. So that's the heart center. And then we go to the belly center, and the belly center is about boundaries. So when our belly centers are whole and integrated, we're at choice about what goes in and what comes out. We have what we call permeable boundaries. And permeable boundaries means we get to choose. We're masters of our own ship. So let's suppose we're not at choice. And then one or more of several things happens when we're traumatized. And it could be one or more. And one of these four things or more happens. We let too much in, we don't let enough in. We let too much out, or we don't let enough out. So either our boundaries are too rigid or they're too porous, and either one of those is a boundary problem, although they look very, very different. And our boundary problems, of course, can be about anything. So it can be about content like money. It can be about a person. So, like, there might be somebody who comes in and we've never met them before, but, we have to cling to them, or we want their attention, or we have to get away from them, or we want to give them no attention. And there's no reason for this except that it's triggering something for us, right? Or it could be in general. Um, So if you have a general boundary problems, it means you've had such some kind of boundary trauma that sort of has generalized to everything because it's been so pervasive, or you had a trauma that's been so powerful that it affects your relationship with everything. And then it sort of is your whole life. You don't get to choose what goes in and what comes out. Or of course, for us therapists, there are therapeutic boundaries. And if we take that because I am a therapist, of course, our work is to have only one desire when we're working, which is to be a servant as a vessel to help alleviate suffering. But as soon as we're attached to a result and we want something for our clients or from our clients, we're not truly there with them because we're focused on ourselves and our own egoic needs. So our work is to be in a place where I'm just here with you, fully present, and just in my presence with you, just being able to accept you exactly where you are, including the changes that will naturally happen if I can be that accepting and that sort of unconditionally loving. If that doesn't happen, right, one or more of the same things happen. So let's suppose I let in too much. It means that I take on your problems. It's called burnout. And you may feel better, but I'll feel worse because, like, I haven't, I've taken you in too much. Right? So that's letting in too much. Let's suppose I don't let in enough. It means that you won't feel received by me and you'll feel like I'm removed or distant in some way, or but something like that. So you'll feel like this doesn't feel very good because I'm here and I'm in a very vulnerable place as a client, and I don't feel like you're holding me in some way and really here with me, but you're back somewhere else. So that's those two possibilities: letting in too much or not letting in enough. Now let's suppose we let out too much. And that, of course, is when you come to see me and I have to get my own egoic needs taken care of. So I use you in some way to take care of them. The obvious way about doing that would be, if I need you to get better. So instead of just sitting with you, I give you advice, or I'm in my own pain. So I tell you about my pain, or I have to get my own needs met through you. Right. So I let out too much. If I don't let out enough, essentially what it means is that I won't be fully present with you and engaged with you in a way that you feel like I've reached out to you. Not literally reached out, but energetically you feel like I'm here with you. And sometimes, if something horrific happens and it's appropriate, it may be that, you know, if it's really in your best interest, maybe we will reach out in some way, certainly with asking permission. But, the idea is that I'm just here with you. And that's what you're looking for in a therapist, and your heart knows. So if you're with a therapist and they're really with you, and you'll feel like they're present with you and they have no agenda and they don't try to tell you how to run your life, but they attune to what really is in your best interest, and that's what they provide. Obviously, feel strongly about this. So there's our centers, right? Our head, our heart, our belly. And, take a little while if you're doing this work. It's always good because we call this, if you're doing, call it guided self healing. Guided self healing means that, you could find your own uh, traumas. You could see if there's a belief you have about yourself that you know on a deeper level isn't true. I can't succeed. I can't grow up. I'm not acceptable as a girl or a boy, whatever it might be, and that there's some kind of anxiety or shame or reactivity. Feel it in the body and let it share and ask it what it needs, whether it's the younger you or an inner child or somebody else altogether in the extraordinary inner world that you have. And then, of course, you can hear what it has to say, and then you can say, you know, I'm going to care for you by doing this thing called reversal tapping, and I will say an affirmation for you, even though because you're part of my community, even though I, in the broadest sense, believe whatever it is that you're telling me you believe, I deeply, profoundly love, accept, and respect myself. And tap around the ears and just make a big infinity look with the eyes and see if worlds open up to you. Or if you want to do the heart center, just find something where you say, you know, I wouldn't let myself feel something and I'm aware of it. Perhaps you're aware of it, or people will say, I had a strong reaction because, you know, I got enraged and why did I get so triggered? Uh, or I didn't let myself feel anything. I felt dead inside. Feel whatever it was that was going on. Feel the sensation and let it share what its anxiety was about feeling the feeling or expressing the feeling. And let it share and hold it with an open hand. And if necessary, you can even talk with it and just say, of course, you know, you who are feeling so and such, or won't let yourself feel, I'll tell you what you need. It's okay for you to feel this way. It's okay for you to feel whatever you're feeling, and you're acceptable to me. And it's like you can reparent yourself. It's like you can bring one hand to your heart and the other to where this discomfort is that you associate with whoever's there. You know, you as a young child or somebody else who is not saying it's okay for me to feel this. And you can like put one hand on them very lovingly and one hand on your heart, and you can talk with them. You can say, "Of course it's okay. You're okay. It's of course it's okay for you to feel what you're feeling. It's understandable because it is." And then the boundary issues, you know, there are several ways you can work with boundaries depending on what the situation is. So the first way you can do it is called boundary tapping, and we'll talk about this, you know, at a later date also. But you just tap right on your sternum, and it's like you're saying, "I get to choose what goes in and what comes out. I'm the master of my own ship." And you're literally tapping right, you know, right on your sternum, sort of right between your breasts. And sometimes, if we've had a violation that feels particularly violent or intrusive, we'll feel sick inside, like someone's gotten inside of us or something has. And then literally you can feather it out and like vomit it out your mouth, no matter what the nature of the violation is, because the earliest ways that we take in the world is through our mouths. So you can literally let it go by energetically vomiting it out. And then maybe you won't have to literally vomit because you're feeling so sick. So that's one way. A second way to set boundaries is through light. So it's a very loving way. Some of us set boundaries by putting a ring of light around ourselves because the world feels dangerous and we have to feel safe and secure. And that's one way, certainly, to protect ourselves if we're afraid, to put ourselves in, you know, encase ourselves inside of something so that nothing can get to us and it all sort of bounces off. But another way to do that, that in some ways is even more powerful, is just to experience and imagine light flowing into crown of head, right down into the center of your chest. You might even imagine it or feel the tingling or sense a heightened vibration. Or, and then you could bring your attention to soles of feet and experience them softening and opening and experiencing energy flowing up from the earth. So it's like spirit and matter are coming together, and it flows right up again into the center of chest. And it's like, you know, some of us might even see that as white light, and you know, the root is red. And so it comes together in the heart and it makes this wonderful commingling of this beautiful pink light. And you can have that light. The pink light is, you know, it's an amazing thing because it really is the higher levels, the higher octaves of the heart chakra. And you can have it expand forward and back and left and right and up and down until you are filled and are this pink light, this vibration, or whatever color it would be for you. And so it's sort of like creating this beautiful boundary boundary of love. And, from a loving place, you can let in whatever it is that feels right to let in. And you can also, from a place of love, say, I don't want to let something in, because that also is a very loving act when it's the right thing to do. So I invite you to do either of those things and fill yourself up with wisdom. If you imagine, between your third eye and your occiput, there's a line. And, in that line, you might see in the pineal gland right in the center of your head a very wise, small version of yourself who is very discerning. And of course, discernment takes care of fear, which your boundaries are fine, and you can just experience and imagine that soulful being, and then have him or her fill you up until you are this wise, discerning being. And they, of course, will know what's good and what's not. So, do the practices. Keep doing your own healing work, which is a great thing to do. And you can start with your centers, which is also a great thing to do. And of course, feel free to share with us. We're creating a community here. And, we'll have a community around our book, and we'll have a community just of people reaching out, and worlds can open up to us. So again, I thank you for accompanying me on this journey with you. And I wish you happy, healing and kindness to yourself as always. And if you want to reach out, always again, Ahn, Hahn, at lifecenteredtherapy.com. And if you want to know anything about our training or our book or what we're doing in the world, you just go to lifecenteredtherapy.com. And you can also find, therapists there, because I'm not the only person in the world who does this work. And thank you. And like I said, please read our book. I think, if you like the podcast, you'll love the book. I think it's a gift. Like all, things that come through you, it isn't yours. It's not proprietary in that sense, because, you give birth to something and it takes on a life of its own. And it wants to be in relationship with you, and you might want to be in relationship with it. And it is called the 1 Hour Miracle, and enjoy it. So until our next time, I wish you happy healing and being kind to yourself and just smiling with yourself and all of